Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. Today we're going to be breaking down what I think are the top 5 best cards in Crown Zenith. Crown Zenith does come out later this week on Thursday on PTCGO. So I thought I would break down what I think are the top 5 best cards in the set. It is a bit of a smaller set, so there's not a whole lot to kind of digest with a lot of cards, but there are still some good cards in the set nonetheless, and I wanted to highlight them. If you have not subbed to the second channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below. Never miss an upload here on the channel. But without further ado, let's start off the top 5. Coming in number 5 is Zacian V-Star. I think Zacian V-Star is a pretty good card with the V-Star Power Star Sword that, for 4 energy, does 310 damage, and you do 30 damage to yourself. Now, Zacian V-Star is a pretty good upgrade to Zacian V. Zacian V is already a pretty strong attacker. Obviously, it's not as good as it used to be, but still having this really strong V-Star option is really good, as you do just have an immediate one-hit KO attack with that Star Sword, being able to do 310 damage. It's pretty good. You do need 4 energy, but you could also combine this with double turbo if you really wanted to, and then you can do 290, play a choice belt, you're doing 330 or 320 still, so it's all good. But yeah, I do really like Zacian V-Star. It's a pretty good upgrade to Zacian V, and if you ever play a Zacian V in your deck, for whatever reason, you can play the V-Star. The nice thing about the V-Star, too, is if you're playing like a metal deck, like, I don't know, Melmetal VMAX, Corviknight VMAX, there's any, like, vanilla metal deck that you even Delga V-Star, you could just slap a Zacian V-Star into your deck. Now, it does also have Breaking Edge, which does go through weakness, resistance, and any other effects on the actives. You do go through stuff like Alolan Vulpix, you can go through Miltank. You just have a free Shred attack, which is just nice. So just having built-in Shred is pretty cool too. But of course, that Star Sword V-Star power is kind of the big thing with Zacian. You might only play one in your deck with a Zacian, but that's fine. You just need one V-Star power a game. You can just come in and Star Sword your opponent and knock them out and do a lot of damage. If your opponent's got a big wall in play, you can just Star Sword it and do a bunch of damage. So definitely think Zacian V-Star is a pretty cool card, and I think that it's nice to have in the format when Zacian V doesn't really have that V-Star option, and now we do have it in the form of Zacian V-Star. On the number 4 spot, I've actually gone with Zamazenta V-Star. I think Zam is better than Zacian V-Star. It's got the ability Star Shield. You may use this ability during your turn. During your opponent's next turn, all of your Pokemon take 100 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon's attacks. Now, that is really fascinating because you could pair this with all kinds of different attackers, and just having that built-in V-Star power is just kind of crazy. There could be times where you just want to have that extra bit of protection for a turn. This ability basically gives you like a free turn of not getting KO'd depending on what you're playing against. I think if you're playing against like something like Duraludon that has Shred, or even something of Zacian V-Star, you do kind of, you know, worry about that. But you are able to use Star Shield in a lot of sticky situations. If you're in a scenario where you need to make that extra bit of comeback, that extra bit of 100 HP that you get out of Star Shield is actually really, really good. There's a lot of instances where this actually could save you. There's other V-Star powers out there like Lugia, Arceus, that are really good to compete with, but just having that Star Shield could be a great option for almost any deck that needs that ability. And you have Giga Impact, which is 220, nice clean amount of damage. It does do enough to knock out basic V Pokemon, which is something to consider. But yeah, that V-Star power is really, really cool. It's like giving you like basically a free turn to not get KO'd, which is really nice. And that honestly could be a cool little comeback ability. So definitely a really fascinating card. I really like Zamazenta V-Star. I do think that it is one of the best cards in the set. I think it's better than Zacian. I think that V-Star power is better than a lot of people are really giving it credit for. I know Jake Gearhart has been hyping up Zamazenta V-Star quite a bit, and I kind of agree. I think that that V-Star power is really, really good. So definitely something to take note of and consider. So I definitely like that V-Star power, and I would definitely say keep your eye out for Zamazenta V-Star, as it could be a pretty good card. Funny enough, at our number 3 spot is Zamazenta, the baby version, which I think is a lot better than the V-Star, which again is very ironic and funny. It does have the ability Metal Shield that allows it to take 30 less damage from attacks if it has an energy attached to it, so effectively kind of giving it 160 HP. And then you got the attack Retaliate for 2 metals and a colorless. You do 100 if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn. This attack does 120 more damage, so you get to do 220 damage, which is pretty good. That knocks out most basic V Pokemon. Now, the big thing about this card is how it will be utilized within the Lost Zone engine decks. Lost Zone is pretty good right now, and Lost Box will get to use this Zamazenta as a really good new single prize attacker. Not only does it have a little bit of bulk to it, kind of like Snorlax, but it also has an attack that does a lot of damage. 120 damage, or 220 damage, sorry, is really good. And this attack immediately gets to respond KOs on stuff like Stoutland, which is very important. Obviously, against Stoutland, Lost Box has to try to KO it using something like Snorlax plus Belt. Now that you have Zamazenta, you just have to use Zamazenta. Now, you do have to Mirage Gate to it, so when you Zam, you got to make sure you're activating Mirage Gate, so you can go Mirage Gate and then attach a metal from your hand. So you do need to still have a metal energy passively already in your hand, and you have to have the other one in your deck, but you can build this up and do 220. This could also be really good with Boss's Order. If your opponent has a V Pokemon in play, it doesn't even have to be Lumineon or Crobat, just like any V Pokemon that tries to evolve into a V-Star, you can sometimes Mirage Gate, attach, Boss, retaliate, knock out that Pokemon to take 2 prizes. So it kind of makes your opponent have to play around Zamazenta even more, because they have to be careful if they bench a Pokemon they're trying to evolve, it could always get KO'd by Zamazenta, which is a really good option. Is it going to be the best card ever for Lost Box? We'll have to see. So far, it's doing pretty well in Japan, which is really all you need to know about how good this baby Zamazenta really is. I do think that it's a pretty good card for Lost Box. I don't know if it'll see play in the Kyogre deck, but it definitely sees play in something like Rayquaza or just any other deck that probably doesn't play Kyogre. I don't think this card is very good in the Kyogre build. I think it's more or less just suited for like amazing rare builds of Lost Box, or even just like Sableye Cram builds that just kind of want Zam. Like, you could probably just play Zamazenta Sableye Cram. It's just that good of a card. It helps a little bit in the Reggie matchup, as it does it has some pretty good bulk there, so it's not a bad card at all, and definitely can hit pretty hard, and I like it a lot. I think it's definitely going to be a great upgrade to Lost Box. Coming at number 2 is Radiant Eternatus. I think this card is really fascinating, and it's got a really awesome ability where, when you play it from your hand on your bench, you may search your deck for up to 2 VMAXs and put them on your bench, and then your turn will end. Really cool ability, because you get to put VMAXs into play right away. You don't have to worry about putting the basic V down. This can be beneficial if you end up going second, of course. Problem with the format is sometimes when you go second, your opponent allows you to go on their second turn to just boss whatever you bench to try to evolve. It's pretty cheesy, but E-turn kind of get around that boss going second cheese, and that's what's cool about it. There's also a lot of really cool options for the ability. Obviously, Duraludon VMAX, Espeon VMAX, Flying Pikachu VMAX, Deoxys VMAX, Shadow Rider VMAX, something like that could all be great options for Radiant E-turn, and it's been pretty decent in Japan. The way to play E-turn so far seems to be with the Mirage Gate Comfey engine, as you're able to kind of use Comfey to try to work towards Mirage Gate, so that you're able to build up those VMAXs you put into play with E-turn. And again, being able to skip evolution is really, really good. Your turn will end, but this ability is honestly kind of bonkers if you end up going first, which is kind of funny, as this card kind of helps you going second, because you kind of avoid those cheesy boss KOs, but you also kind of play into a really good going first scenario where you're just immediately going to put 2 really big Pokemon to play immediately, which is just kind of bananas, to be honest. And E-turn's a really fascinating card. There are some issues with it, of course, and that's why I didn't put it at number 1. The main issues are that, 1, VMAXs are kind of on the downswing anyways. I mean, Duraludon and Mew are the only good ones, but they're just there because they have really good speed, or they just try to not have your opponent be able to do anything, like against Duraludon. Some Pokemon can't attack it. E-turn, you know, its targets are nice. I mean, stuff like Espeon, Pikachu are really good, but all in all, VMAXs have just been kind of on the downswing. They struggle against stuff like Regis, and obviously there's stuff like that are just faster than it. Lugia just kind of goes ooga booga evil tall knockout your big VMAX wall. Obviously there's Lost Box and stuff like that, just kind of outspeeds the VMAX deck. So VMAXs have been kind of on the downswing. Will E-turn revive the VMAX archetypes? We'll have to see. The other problem with it is, it could be prized. You have to play like 2 heavy balls to try to guarantee it a lot of the time. Because you prize it, it can be very tricky. And if your deck revolves around, you know, E-turn not being prized, it can be very, very tough. And late game E-turns can be kind of sketchy because Boss's Order still exists. Being able to just boss a VMAX and punch it is still really bad for them anyway. So we'll have to see where E-turn goes. Definitely got some high hopes for it, though. There's a lot of really cool archetypes and ideas that I've already seen. And I'm definitely going to experiment with some cool ideas here on the channel. Before we get to number 1, I did want to note a couple honorable mentions here. The first one is going to be Rotom V-Star. This card has been getting a lot of hype, and a lot of people are really excited for this card to come out. Unfortunately, I don't think Rotom V-Star is as good as people are making it out to be. It does have a really strong attack with Scrap Pulse doing 80, then you put any number of tools from your discard into the Lost Zone, and then just 40 for each one you put in the Lost Zone. It's a really cool attack. Obviously, you can one-shot anything. The problem is it needs 2 lightning. It's a little slow, and I don't think Rotom V-Star is going to be able to keep up with a lot of the big decks anyways. It only has 250 HP. It's also very fragile, and if you're playing something like Lost Box, it can be very tough. I honestly don't think that Rotom V-Star is as good as people are hyping it up to be. I think that it's just kind of a mid card at the end of the day. But I did want to put in honorable mentions nonetheless. I still think it's probably like either number 6 or number 7 on this list. And then, of course, we got Regigigas V-Star. I actually really have high hopes for this card. It does have the attack Giga Impact, doing 230 base damage. It's actually a lot of damage to do. It's very bulky with 300 HP. And it does, of course, have the ability Star Guardian. You can only use the ability only if your opponent has exactly 1 prize remaining. Discard one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, all cards attached to it. So, very situational ability, but a very powerful and annoying ability at that. And this card obviously synergizes well with powerful Colorless Energy and Choice Belt, so you can really ramp up the damage, and you can play it with Charon's Care, so it's a very good card in my opinion. I think Regigigas V-Star is kind of slept on. Like, a lot of people are like, oh my god, Rotom V-Star is going to be so cool, it's going to be a tier 1 deck, and then I'm like, no it won't. Regigigas, I actually think could be a tier 1 deck, or not tier 1, but at the very least like tier 2. Like, I think it's a good deck regardless. I think it's kind of like something like a Goodra deck where it'll be in the meta. People are going to play it because of what it can do. So yeah, Regigigas is probably number 6, Rotom be number 7. But I really like Regigigas. I think it's actually really slept on. A lot of people are not taking advantage of to what it could really be used with. Again, powerful Colorless Energy does exist, and as long as that card exists, Gigas, I think, can be good. So definitely keep your eye on Regigigas. I think it's a very powerful card, and I think that a lot of people are really underestimating how good Regigigas actually is. Coming in at the number 1 spot, I've actually gone with Skyseal Stone. I think this card is actually insane and a big game changer. Now, it does have the effect where you can only use it on a V Pokemon, but you may use the ability during your turn. During this turn, when damage from the attack of your basic V Pokemon knocks out your opponent's active V-Star or V-Max, you take an additional prize. Now, the big thing about this card is the good V Pokemon it pairs with. The big one, I think, is obviously Drapion. This card is kind of bananas with Drapion. If you use this with Drapion V-Star and you knock out a Mew V-Max, you literally take 4 prizes, and then all you have to do is just KO a Genesect to win the game. That is ridiculous. This card is great against Mew and Drapion. Just being able to take 4 prizes against a Mew is insane. That puts you so far ahead in the match, it's kind of bananas. And it works with other V Pokemon, like Raikou V is a big one. There's obviously Galarian Zapdos V. There's a lot of options for this card, and I really, really like it. Being able to take potentially half of your prizes on a V-Star is so bananas. It's actually crazy how good this card is. You can play it with something like Dragonite V. There's so many options to play it. You can use it as a checkmate card in the late game. Like in Lost Box, again, you save like Raikou or Dragonite, hit a Pokemon with Sableye or Cram, and that V-Star can eventually be star-ordered, and you get 3 prizes winning the game. It's so good. I think this card is actually a game changer, and it's one of those cards that kind of requires, especially with those like late game wins, you kind of requires a bit of a big brain, but it's a great card, and honestly kind of makes a lot of the big basic V Pokemon that hit for weakness and have one-shot potential, like again Drapion and Raikou and Galarian Zapdos V. That makes them so much better. This card is a very deadly card, and it can be, if utilized properly, this could actually be a game changer in the format. So definitely keep your eye on Skyseal Stone. I think it's the best card in Crown Zenith, and I think that it's going to be very good, and I think a lot of people are going to come up with some really creative concepts to play this card, and will change it'll change a lot. It'll change the way a lot of decks are played. It might even change how Mew has to be played, because again, Drapion can take 4 prizes against you, which is pretty deadly. But yeah, that's it for the top 5 video on the best cards in Crown Zenith. What do you all think of the list down below? It's a very small set. There wasn't that many cards to choose from, but there are still some good ones regardless, and I think that the set is still going to be a lot to come out, and it'll change the format a little bit and make things a little more interesting. A couple new archetypes will be sprinkled here and there, which is pretty exciting. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. If you're new to the second channel, click the subscribe button down below on the second channel. I guess we're on the road to 3,000 subscribers. Check out Card Cavern down below if you're getting any Crown Zenith codes. Use code LDF. Check out my Twitch, my Twitter, my Discord, and the Shovel Squad, and that'll be it for me. And let me know in the comments below what you thought of this tier list, this top 5 video. Sorry, do you think it was accurate? What do you think is the best card in Crown Zenith? Did I miss a card in the top 5 in honorable mention? Let me know. That'll be it. Bye-bye.